Excuse me. I'm a product specialist with the Telos Alliance, and the brands that I really specialize in are linear acoustic and a bit of Telos products as well. For those of you who don't know, the Telos Alliance is not a group of manufacturers. It is a manufacturer, and those are the 6 that are manufactured by the Telos Alliance. If you've been here for a few years, I've spoken about immersive audio. This is probably the 3rd time I've been here to speak about this. At the beginning, it was talking about the possibilities of ATSC 3. ATSC 3, there are some promises from a number of groups that there will be stations on the air, more than 24 by the end of 2020. But immersive does not have to wait until ATSC 3. There is a lot of immersive being broadcast right now. It's just not over the air. And so I thought I would do a review of what immersive is, what it means in North America in particular with ATSC 3. So immersive audio itself giving a 3D experience to the viewer, to the listener. That's the point of the immersion. Immersive audio is used in VR. It's used a lot in games. I'm not going to talk about the gaming world much, but this is not absolutely new technology. The broadcast aspects of it that are pretty new. Atmos. If you are looking at consumer gear, whether it's set-top boxes or new televisions, 4K TVs in particular, Atmos is the Dolby name for their immersive experience. So Atmos is not a format. It's not a codec. It's not a technical means of delivery. Atmos is the experience that's being delivered. So if we step back to Dolby Digital, in ATSC 1, we're all broadcasting. And I'm a little surprised sometimes when I talk to engineers who don't realize that when they are sending mono or stereo, that it's Dolby included, but everything that goes from a transmitter or a cable head end, at least originally, to a consumer is using the Dolby Digital or the AC3. And in ATSC 1, it's the only thing that's covered part of ATSC 1 is what broadcast. What you're seeing almost universally now as a Dolby library or as Dolby format is Dolby Digital. And Dolby Digital is a subset of that. So Dolby Digital Plus is a replacement for AC3. It's the next generation, so it's enhanced AC3. It is the next generation, but it is not covered by the ATSC 1 broadcast rules. However, because you can get more channels at lower data rates with higher quality than AC3, it is widely adopted in the satellite and cable industries. You don't need 640, 480, 384 kilobits per second to deliver 5.1. You go down toward 192. For operators and for satellite operators, even that small savings in bandwidth is important. And so Dolby Digital Plus has been around for a long time, and it is used widely in cable and satellite. Dolby AC is the 3rd generation. Dolby says they started with a clean sheet of paper. AC4 was not intended to be an incremental improvement. It was not intended to be backward compatible. It was intended to be, from a clean sheet of paper, what is needed for the next generation of broadcasting. AC4 is specified in the ATSC 3 specification. So is MPEG-H. So MPEG-H is another methodology for delivering multi-channel. I'll take a side for a minute and just talk about magic Dolby had that made them the choice for ATSC 1 and what made them the choice for ATSC 3. There was no way to deliver more than stereo in absolute phase lock synchrony. So the technology from AES AC3 from digital baseband allowed you to take two channels and have those two channels locked and have those channels not slide with respect to phase. But there was no way to move 5.1 or even 3 channels. AC3 actually covers, though it's rarely used, it covers mono, stereo, 2.1, so 2 channels in a subwoofer, 3 channels in a subwoofer. It covers 4 channels without a subwoofer, but with a single channel, and it covers 5.1. What they figured out how to do was to deliver 5 channels plus an LFE channel, all locked. That never existed in MPEG until MPEG-H. So outside of ATSC 1, there was no multi-channel broadcasting unless Dolby was used for it. Slightly before AC3 was Dolby E, and that was the magic of Dolby E. Dolby E could not only deliver 4 pairs or 8 channels of audio, but 5.1. The channels they delivered were absolutely phase locked. So Dolby in their AC4 has a huge heritage of knowing how to deliver at low bit rates the final distribution content to the user. Or we should call it final distribution, final delivery, because distribution has another meaning, and distribution would mean channels that can be produced after being received. AC4 and AC3, and they're not intended to be decoded back to baseband, produced, and then reprocessed because the compression is lossy. Dolby Digital Plus Atmos. Now this is interesting. Using Dolby Digital Plus, you can deliver the Atmos experience, because when Dolby Digital Plus was done, it covers 9.1 channels, can be delivered within Dolby Digital Plus. In technical sense from Dolby, you'll see Dolby Digital Plus JOC, Joint Object Control, and the idea of the JOC was you have an ability to do a 5.1 to matrix additional channels into that, to use Joint Object Control to take that 5.1 to an AC decoder and decode 5.1, but also get the other information out of it. And you can also deliver an additional 4 channels, full 4 channels as height channels within this. That
we're doing a surround sound plus above and below.
Well, the below is intended to be covered by the single plane that you're in, which would be the ground plane. So depending on how directional the speakers are and your environment, it really is from the plane of the speakers as low as that goes and going up. Because low end typically feels like it's coming from all over, that usually covers the low.
5.1.2, you mean a 5 channel, a subwoofer, and what are the other 2?
Well, they call them height channels as opposed to ceiling channels. So
they literally are high.
Yes. So you'll see, you can go online and look at documents, Dolby 5.1.2, Dolby 5.1.4, Dolby Atmos, and you will see in their Atmos papers, they describe every one of these. So 7.1, that doesn't include height. That includes 2 speakers on the sides and 2 in the back, like what you would get in a theater. You have stuff that can move this way as opposed to either behind you or in front of you. The 5.1 is what we have at home. It's all in the same plane with 2 speakers that are supposed to be 120 degrees from the front and not directly behind you. It would give you that sense of space.
Wait a minute, I'm getting confused from 7.1 to 5.1. 5 is the original round of the 5 channels. The 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and then you got, of course, the subwoofer.
5.1.2, you have a choice. It can be run like 7.1, which is 2 speakers here. So you'd have 1 there, a center channel, 1 there. You'd have 2 up high, or those 2 can be ceiling speakers. And if you get a new AVR, and in the menus of the AVR will give you choices of how you want to render. So if you have the heights, but you don't have the ceiling speakers.
Recorded that way to render it.
Well, this is what's funny.
How can I,
the
is a high sound, you can't fake a high sound.
The Joint Object Control is actually some metadata. And if you choose a receiver to have it look like 7 on the two height channels, metadata will tell the receiver how to combine that. If you choose two height channels, the sideband data will tell you how to interpret that. If you do 9.1, that 9.1 is also not 4 ceiling speakers. It's 2 height here and 2 height in the back.
So what do we got? 2 heights in the back, 2 heights in the front, and then ground level?
Right.
So you got 4 on the top, that's 8, and then the...
Well, so on the top is the new option for true immersive. 8 channels, whether you do 2 in the front or you do 4, 2 in the back and 2 in the front, does not give you the same perception as when you actually put in ceiling speakers. Or instead of ceiling speakers, there would be a speaker up here with a reflector, and that reflector would push it off the ceiling. And then it doesn't have to be on the ceiling, it has to seem to come from the ceiling. Now sound bars, which have upward speakers, and there are also sound bars that synthesize a sense of surround, of immersive, using all immersive channels, but without placing the physical speakers at different locations. All of that is Atmos. None of that is a delivery technology. The delivery technology is Dolby Digital Plus Atmos, the Atmos sideband data. Dolby ED2 is the next generation of Dolby E. The difference is ED2 can handle more channels. So in ED2, you can use 16 channels or more of audio because you can link sets of these. So what Dolby E did was it took the space of an AES-3 baseband digital signal and fit multiple channels in it with very, very good coding that was distribution quality. Send it to you and you could remix it. You could Dolby E, remix it and re-encode it. What they did with ED2 is up to every audio channel get currently an SDI, some sideband data included in that, and the ability to bond channels so you could write across multiple channels and use multiple stereo streams and go up to 128 channels of audio in ED2. Now, this first 8 channels could be decoded by a Dolby E decoder. This is not necessarily available, but the idea here was to be able to do channels to make it look like the original Dolby E. So the backward compatibility of this was technical mode where you could deliver it to an old codec. So you could have a new coder and an old codec, and you could choose just to send the 8 channels that were possible in the original Dolby. That, as I understand it, is not implemented yet in the ED2 encoding. And we have an ED2 encoder. It doesn't do that at the moment. That's with Dolby libraries. So immersive audio in ATSC 3, the next step would be Dolby AC4 or MPEG-H, but North America is seen as a region. You could divide North America, the US, Canada, and Mexico. Those are really 3 regions the way they're looked at, but all 3 of those regions have agreed on ATSC 3 and they've all accepted Dolby AC4 as the transmission method. Around the world, different choices have been made in different places. Korea adopted ATSC 3 more than a year ago. They did it and they chose MPEG-H. They do it. I think that Norway has accepted ATSC 3 and they have, I believe, chosen Dolby as the way to do it. So it's not Europe as a region. An individual country can be a region. It's everywhere. Pardon me. It's everywhere that can receive signals. The country or that area is going to choose one of those and not do both. So what do you need for immersive audio? Not for Atmos, but for immersive. What do you have to have? Well, additional speakers, that doesn't mean you need a physical speaker on the ceiling. It would be an additional speaker in the existing ground plane speakers. Those exist from multiple manufacturers. There are sound bars that already have not just the side-facing speakers to reflect off the sides of the room to give you a 5.1, but they also have things that are pointing up at your ceiling. And by the way, you use those, you would go from your receiving device into the sound bar. The sound bar would do the delays of audio and matching video delay so that went to your TV, the video and the audio is in lip sync, and yet you have the delay to allow sound to come hit the ceiling and come down to you. And the center channel has been delayed, so all of those give you a cohesive or coherent immersive impression, an immersive experience. We have to be able to deliver more than 5.1 channels. So that exists in cable and that exists in satellite. It does not exist right now in over the air, and won't until we get to ATSC 3 in North America. But what do we do now? Dolby Digital can deliver 5.1 plus 4 right now. Those decoders, at least the decoders which are Dolby Digital Plus, which means they can pull the 5.1 bass out of this and give you exactly what you have now, those are in place in cable and satellite in most of them. The chipset that you buy Dolby to put in your consumer device has been a Dolby Digital Plus chipset for years and years and years and years. So unless you have very old equipment, you can already decode Dolby Digital Plus 5.1 plus 4. You can already decode that as the original 5.1. And you need a device that has the Dolby Plus chip that can receive it. So if you're doing 5.1, you can use the Toslink or the coax output. But immersive uses higher bandwidth than coax and Toslink ports are capable of. So Dolby 1.4, 5.1 plus 4 through that coax connection. If you have a set-top box now that is immersive capable, you would get immersive in the HDMI output because it can handle a high bit rate delivery. If you connect to the coax, you'll get the 5.1 base delivery.
The Toslink, why wouldn't they put it in the Toslink? Toslink has so much. It's ridiculous.
Because both of those consumer formats are set formats, and all those receiver chips have been a long time. It would take another generation. They would have to be named something. The consumer confusion over which Toslink and which coax could handle high bit rate and which could not. And to avoid consumer confusion, they've chosen to make it available through HDMI only. So what's capable of this right now? We're involved with a broadcast of Notre Dame home games, which are all mixed in a truck, sourced as 5.1.4. But NBC did not want to have this full coverage, full immersive experience on the field. And as soon as they went to an interview, a sideline interview or something, that it all collapsed to just a center or to just stereo. And so using our immersive up mixer, which takes their stereo mixes that are done as locker room interviews, when they go to somebody's hometown and they do a profile of someone, for instance, the Olympics, or they do promo, they're up mixing those. Those are seen on DirecTV. And if you're a subscriber to DirecTV and you have their premium and sports package, they will send you a set-top box that will send 5.1.4 out the HDMI port. You can use the coax port and get this straight 5.1 bed out of that, but you do have immersive, and that's being delivered. Infinity has an X1 service. If you go to the X1 service and you subscribe for the high quality, you get immersive out of that set-top box. Fios TV One, same thing. You subscribe to their premium service, you get it out of that box. Not sure. I haven't found documentation for Time Warner, Cox, or other cable companies that they're doing that. They're doing 5.1. Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, all of those are delivering them right now. All of these boxes can handle a Dolby Digital Plus Atmos track. And who's creating that content? These are all creators of that content. You can get 5.1.4 content from all of these providers, providing that those providers are being delivered to you through a device that can deliver it. You may have NBC, and you may be watching the Olympics, which is delivered in 5.1.4, or watching Notre Dame football, which is currently up. There's a game this week. It's delivered in 5.1.4. You'll need an Apple TV box or a Fire Stick device that can pull that, or a DirecTV set-top box that can pull that. That exists. Every AV manufacturer, audiovisual receiver, used to be called home theater, everybody has got a 1 channel box. And those boxes that say Dolby Atmos on them, 5.1.4 capable. We have for demos an Onkyo receiver. It's 9.1 channels. It's $399 from Crutchfield, so it's not a tremendous expense. When you go into that box, you set it for 5.1.2 or 5.1.4, depending on how many speakers you want, or just 5.1. When it receives a Dolby Atmos, it puts it right up on the screen, and it says Dolby Atmos, and that is decoded and put up as full surround. It's HDMI, so you can come out of any HDMI device that delivers Dolby Digital plus Atmos, go into that receiver or any of the receivers like it, and that's what it sends to the TV. In fact, with ARC, which is the audio return channel, those TVs are smart enough to have a discussion with the receiver and tell the receiver what they're capable of. There's offline.
Are they delivering that 5.1.4 on the ARC channel?
Yes.
HDMI?
Yes, that's how. Yes.
Okay.
And so, if your TV
Coming in on one HDMI channel is going back out of the other.
Well, the advantage of doing that is that your TV could be the source. So if your TV can provide 5.1.4, it can send it back to your receiver, or if you have 5.1.4, you can send it there. And likewise, if your TV receives 5.1.4, but your speaker system, your AVR can only 5.1, the ARC discussion between the two pieces will result in the TV giving you the 5.1 base and sending the 5.1 base to your device, because your device says, I don't understand Dolby Digital plus Atmos. I only understand Dolby Digital plus or AC3. All of these entities have been doing 5.1 for a while, available over the top. We have an up mixer, SDI in, baseband AES3 in, AES 67 / ST211030 inputs that will pull audio in, so we can take in stereo or 5.1 and give you back 5.1.4. We can switch it to our stereo up mix. Those of you who use linear acoustic, we've had an up mixer. This would be the fourth generation. We can go from the third generation, first, second, or we can duplicate that as a legacy up. It sounds like what you've been doing before. And that's on the air. So not over the air, but if you have satellite TV or you're watching on cable and you have a box capable of it, all the 5.14 that's not live from the field is upmixed. 5291, if you follow products at all, they have a 591. It was never manufactured in large quantities. They seeded it with approximately 100 591s. We are actually making hardware, and this has got the same set of inputs that the up mixer does, but this device gives you either ED2 output, so you can go from a truck using ED2, go back to your facility if you're on fiber or any with connection, or if you have a lower with connection, you can go directly to Dolby Digital Atmos on the output of that and deliver that to the studio or deliver that to the cable company. You could put this between your transmit to air and your transmit to a cable company. So I know there's a lot of groups out there that do their own feeds to cable right from the studios. You could deliver a cable company with this box directly, Dolby Digital Plus Atmos. And if your cable company tells you that those Dolby Digital Plus receivers, that covers all of their household, you can deliver this. If it's just 5.1, it'll come out as 5.1. It's just stereo, it comes out as stereo. The nice thing about the Dolby Digital Plus is that 5.1 bed can be received by a legacy receiver. Legacy receiver, you can do Dolby 5.1, AC3. AC3 box is going to know nothing about anything except that 5.1 bass. But it is possible to deliver 5.1 bass to any of those other pieces here. It should be an invisible process. What's being done right now with all of those broadcasters is those broadcasters typically have agreements with the cable companies or the satellite companies they're dealing with, and it's done as a special. The people who can receive this are identified and notified. If it requires new boxes, that's part of a program to put new boxes out there. But if you have this capability now, there's shows, as I said before, there are shows on Netflix and there's shows on Vudu that you can get right now. Comcast has a library, Apple TV and Apple iTunes. There is a high-resolution iTunes music service that's going to deliver immersive. And that's being done with Dolby Digital Plus Atmos. So there are sources for this right now that are actually competing entertainment sources to broadcast. So all of these possibilities exist, and they're out there, and they're being done, and they've been experimented with and up for well over a year. Thanks for your attention. Are there any questions about what's going on?
Well, you pretty much covered the rough water running around.
Yeah, well, there are some rough waters running around.
I've been listening to these arguments for 20 years, and it's a never-ending sea of rough water. You sell a new concept and idea. The trick is getting the industry to support it.
Right. The support for this, what we're seeing is the support for this is already pretty wide, even though putting this in the field in pretty much a specialized audience. That is, you need to have a connection from somebody with.
You have to have the last mile filled in the living room. And if it ain't in the living room, you got a 50 million gallon pipe going nowhere.
True. We believe, and we're supporting this as a manufacturer, which is a big leap. I think we're the only manufacturers of a real-time upmixer to 5.1.4, and I think we're the manufacturer of a Dolby Digital Plus Atmos encoder at the moment. Real-time encoder. I mean, there are libraries where you can do this. Movies have been done in Atmos of some number of channels for a long time. I mean, that's not what's new. What's new here is real-time inter-broadcast air chain with a broadcast device. And the reason that we're supporting this is what we see happening here is going to be the precursor to ATSC 3. And the big difference with ATSC 3 is that Atmos will support multiple commentaries. So you will have the choice, not just 5.1.4, which may not even be interesting to you, but what will be interesting to you is, I want the Washington announcer for this football game. I don't want the network guy. But if they're playing New York, the New York guys want the New York announcer and not the network guy. And if you don't care, you may choose the network announcer. You may want this, not Spanish, but you may want this in French. The ability to have all of these channels isn't necessarily because the world is going to adopt immersive, probably. A huge amount of the world is still in mono and stereo. But what the world is going to adopt is easy from the manufacturer control with multiple choices of commentaries and languages. So that's not supported in Dolby Digital Plus Atmos because you don't have the space for all the multiple commentary. But you will have the space in ATSC 4. ATSC 3 with AC4, you will have the room for all those commentaries.
Digital in to like IP was set up, they're stupid and not looking at the future.
ATSC 3 not only broadcasts IP format, which matches the TV format.
What I mean by that, really, and the magic of the IP format, super flexibility
Right.
to adopt, and it can expand end to end.
The object of ATSC 3 was to make the broadcast over the air in the same format that you get over the top. The advantage being that over the air, I may get the core screen, but if I'm on a device that's network attached, core stream, I can add all these different features, and it is exactly the same decoder. It's exactly the capability of ATSC 3 is to take broadcasters to a footing where they can deliver the same kinds of things that people who are only network attached can. That's part of the background of ATSC 3 and the development. All of these pieces are in there. And what you're seeing already is that cable companies and over-the-top companies have already grabbed Dolby Digital plus Atmos. That, I mean, it's so usable in that venue that it's done. We're not waiting for them to do it. The technology came available. It's on the air, and it's on the air there's multiple streams of it from multiple companies, multiple programs. So that part's done. What ATSC 3 will do is to give broadcasters the ability to send that, which they don't have at the moment, and to utilize the back channel and to utilize an over-the-top channel to enhance the broadcast channel. So lots and lots of stuff going on here, and it's all aimed to get a lot of the facility that you have in over-the-top and satellite where you own the channel. Thank you all. I really appreciate it.